my first question for you, Moin, is I think this film broaches this idea of a loneliness in modern Britain. That's what I thought with it. We see this main character who is sort of isolated on his own, but you then explore that against this idea of a communal experience. I wanted to ask what sort of inspired that theme, because we see him isolated, but at the end of the film, we see a sense of culmination where he finds some kind of family, in a sense. So what inspired you to explore that?
Yeah, I don't know, how far do I lean in? Yeah, I mean, I guess from an early stage, we were kind of always talking about it being a film about communication and contact, and, you know, contact in, you know, all sorts of senses. So yeah, I mean, he was always, you know, this character who is kind of stuck in between places and kind of is a little bit lost in where he kind of fits in. So yeah, I mean, it was always going to be this kind of cut off kind of night world that he existed in. So yeah, I mean, I think he's somebody who likes people, and I think, you know, there's a line where the manager Jeff says, you know, you're a people person, and I think he is a people person, but he just doesn't know how to, you know, he struggles with people, I think. So yeah, I think that's something that's kind of that runs through it. Is that a sentence?
Yep.
For sure. Yeah, Ty, it's been a long week. Yeah.
And was that always in the script process? This idea that you explore, has that always been there in the ideation stage and in the script as well?
Yeah, from the start, it was always pretty clear, you know, the kind of through line of what the film was in terms of the world, the character. You know, I guess his journey deviated slightly, but it was always kind of pretty set, you know, always kind of ended on that bridge and stuff. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Michelle, I wanted to talk about your role in this, because I think there's a misconception about what you do. I've met a lot of people who don't really know the sort of intricacies of the role. So if you can you please break down what led you guys to sort of get to the first day of shooting and the process that led you to the final day of shooting? Because no one talks about the process that led you to that first day, and I know how hard it must have been. So what led you that first day and the last day?
Yeah, well, we'd worked together on a film called Real Gods Require Blood, a short film, and that did really well, and we enjoyed working together. So we then sort of worked together. I was then having a baby, so I worked as an exec producer on Moan's next short film called Naphtha, which was supported by Film 4 and Film London and BFI Network. And really, I mean, we actually had a different film to start with, didn't we? We sort of pitched a feature for Moan because it felt like, okay, you know, his shorts were doing really well, like, you know, and he obviously wanted to do a feature, so we pitched a feature which we worked on together very closely for quite a while, like a year, and couldn't quite crack. And then Moen kind of had this idea, which he'd loosely sort of explored a little bit in the short film Naphtha as well. And we kind of took that back to Film 4 and said, actually, maybe we want to change our idea. And luckily, they were very, very supportive and agreed to it. So then from that point on, kind of for the next, basically, we were developing the script for 3 years after that, which is actually quite quick. It sounds like a long time. But there was sort of 3 years passed between kind of the first sort of idea and making it. And in that time, I suppose my role was really to help Moen kind of creatively with the script. So we work quite closely. I give kind of feedback on what he's writing. And then, you know, raising the money, and then doing all the kind of early pre-prep stuff. So like casting and location scouting, and just kind of sort of slowly over a period of, 6 months, kind of bringing the money and the casting and the locations and stuff kind of together to a point where everybody's like, okay, you know, this is happening now, and then the train is kind of on the track, and you know, you've got to either get on or not, and so really, like, from, you know, 2 months before we shot, it was all very fast paced, and everything came together. The crew came together really well. The cast did, and then yeah, it was a bit of a whirlwind of a shoot. We shot for 5 weeks, and yeah, the rest is history.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, I know. That was summarized in probably 3 minutes, but it probably there's a lot. There's a lot that obviously goes into it. So it's interesting. Like throughout the process, was there any point where you questioned whether this would happen or not?
Not really. I think we pushed the shoot back once, didn't we?
Yeah.
We were gonna shoot, and we pushed it back. I can't really remember why. I think we just needed that bit more time with the kind of locations and stuff. I think that's what it was. Yeah. And it also, because it's a bit tricky, because like I work quite a lot with writer directors like Moen, and it's quite challenging for them because they have to finish the script and get the script to a point where everybody agrees that it's ready to film, but then they're also directing, so those two things, sometimes you need a bit of extra time to sort of allow for the transition, I guess, between the writer and the director. So it was good to have that bit of extra time. But I don't think there was any point where there was no massive spanner in the works, which there sometimes is. So it all felt quite good. Mostly because we had such supportive funders, who were like, we're making this, and that's amazing for a producer to have that behind them.
Thank you so much. Moin, your film occupies many worlds in it. For me, I think it's hard to see a film. In some sense, a film has one sort of theme that it explores, but yours, it's a sci-fi film. It's a film about loss and the grieving process. There's an otherworldliness that's sort of inherent in the film that is so unnerving as well. So how did you balance all these different elements in the film, and how do you translate that in the script to the actual shooting process?
Yeah, I mean, it's always like a bit of a dance, isn't it? Trying to write something and kind of get that balance of feeling like there's enough in there to kind of satisfy you or keep you interested, but making sure you're giving enough space to kind of do those kind of ideas justice, I guess. And you don't really know, I guess, until afterwards. Until now, really, like this week, people are just like, oh, I saw that in it, and I saw that in it, and it's actually only now that I'm like, oh, great, like I'm really glad that that thread was, I kind of kept that thread in there. So yeah, I mean, I can't really remember the second half of your question, but what was it? What was it?
So I think, how did you balance all the elements imbued in the film, and how do you translate it from the script to the screen? Because I think it's one thing to have a script that is brilliant, but then it never always translates. In my case, anyway, it never translates. But in this work, it's really beautifully rendered.
Yeah, well, I think you kind of, we had a good development process where by the time, the script's never completely finished. We're kind of tweaking it until during the shoot to react to the locations and stuff. But I think going into the shoot, all those threads and ideas are kind of baked into like one thing that kind of works at that point. So you're not really worrying about that. It's just trying to get this thing that's on the page, filmed. So yeah, I was really lucky to have, really good collaborators. Me and Nick Cook, who I hope is here.
There he is.
Where is he? Hey. Yeah, Nick's great, and he gave so much of his time, and we were like working, from way before prep, talking about stuff, planning things. Likewise with other HODs. So yeah, you kind of go in, kind of making sure you're all speaking the same language, and it makes everything super, not easy, it's still hard, but easier than it could be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned language there, and I think the visual language is, I think, immensely extraordinary. I have to say, you capture this with such breadth and power. You also capture the interior lives of the characters in a way that felt so deeply intimate. So I want to talk about the visual language and what sort of films you saw that inspired it, and what was your sort of working process as well, capturing this work.
Yeah, I think trying to visually, I guess if you're talking about the interiority of those the characters, there isn't loads of dialogue in the film, so it's about, I guess, transmitting Adam's emotions, thoughts, feelings through, the sound, the visuals, everything else as well. And yeah, like in terms of, I think we talked about keeping things quite simple, you kind of looked at like the way Ozu shoots, faces and how they're quite central, and it kind of, I don't know, I watch his films and you can feel like you're just inside those characters, not inside their heads, but you feel like you're close to them, you feel like you're really intimate. So we kind of talked about that, and yeah, lots of other things as well, but yeah.
Thank you so much. Michelle, I wanted to, if possible, in the time we have, I don't know how much, okay, we got time. I wanted to sort of dissect the relationship that you had with Moin working on this, because I think it can be a very difficult, complex relationship. So how much trust did you have to have in each other, and what was that sort of working process like for you guys?
Yeah, we sort of talked about, because we'd obviously been very close during the kind of script development, but then it's very different when you're kind of getting onto the floor and there's actors and, there's a kind of a process that I have to respect as a producer, and but yet obviously still have maybe things to say sometimes. So we kind of had like a bit of a deal, didn't we? We made a bit of a deal about like how we were going to interact with each other on set. So we talked about like, Mo was like, okay, well, it was like a workflow for like on set.
I'm super relaxed.
But it's really necessary, because like the last thing that he would want was me to like jump in too soon and be like, oh, maybe this, maybe that. And so, it was just like I had to respect what he was doing, and then he would respect me by listening to me, because I think, I've worked with a few directors and they don't always, and they kind of forget like sometimes the investment that you as the producer has put in, and the time you've put in. It kind of, in the like heat of the shoot, it goes out the window. So it was really important to both of us, I think, that we like retained that respect for each other and always listened to each other. That's from my point of view.
Yeah,
You can be very honest, Moin. I was.
No, I just think, yeah, it's really important to keep that same level of communication, because, for years and years, we've pretty much the only people we're talking to regularly about it. And then, you're kind of very distant during prep, you're kind of off doing different things. So, yeah, I mean, for me, like what Michelle was saying about the workflow, it's, always want to talk to the actors first, and then, talk to Nick, the DP, and then if there's something else that is you've seen, or I kind of have to be quite ordered in the way I do things. If I don't, it just turns into a mess. So that's kind of, but I think it worked, and you drive me to set every day and tell me about all the problems.
Yeah.
And all solutions, actually, solutions. So yeah, we had a good thing going. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like Heather Baston, who's a casting director, has a lot of credit for that. Yeah, we kind of just saw, starting with kind of Adam, we kind of saw a lot of actors, a lot of tapes. And yeah, kind of from an early stage, I kind of really like Faraz, but you have to do your due diligence and kind of, see a few actors, bring them back. But I think the more time that went on, I was just kind of convinced. Mother of great, amazing actors who I'd love to work with on other things, but Faraz was just the one person who I believed was that character. So yeah, I mean, once you've cast him as Adam, everyone else you kind of try and kind of piece around that. So with Tara, played by Natalie Gavin, we kind of, when we called her back, I recognised her from something. I didn't know what it was, but I'd seen her in like The Arbor, which is Claire Barnard's film. She's great in that, and yeah, she's perfect for Tara. So kind of brought her back to kind of read with Faraz. And then the rest of the cast was just kind of like actors who we knew before, or who we thought would be great, like Claire Rushbrook, Steve Oram, and the other guys as well, who similarly to kind of Faraz and the others, who just were like, that's they fit perfectly. It was kind of, you kind of realise everyone needed to kind of have a similar kind of flavour to them, I think. didn't want somebody who was going to kind of stick out and feel like kind of different type of beast, I guess. So yeah, it was important to get them all kind of fitting together. Yeah, I mean the idea was to just try and make the service station feel more and more, I guess, like a spaceship as the film went on, and make, as he becomes more convinced of who he is and where he's come from, to kind of project that outwardly. So yeah, it's just every kind of decision you're making as we kind of wanted it to feel, never to notice the change, but for there to be a very marked difference by the end of the film. But yeah, I mean, in terms of shooting on film, like, something, I was talking about from really early on, keep talking about Nick. Me and Nick were kind of, really eager to do it, just because I kind of felt like it would serve both the very, the kind of grounded nature of the story, but also the kind of more heightened, otherworldly part of it. And yeah, I just, like film. It's as simple as that, really. It was kind of, there are challenges that come with it, but there's also like a focusing that comes with it. You kind of spend so long trying to make digital look like film. Like, if you can shoot on film, then great, do it. Like, Michelle was amazing in making that happen. Yeah, easier in some ways, harder in other ways, I think. Um, during writing the scripts, you've got more. I think with shorts, you need to be really like focused about. I mean, you need to be focused when you're writing a feature, but it's a lot of the time it's like, what's this one thing I'm trying to communicate? Whereas with features, there's still that, but there's space to kind of have different angles and flavors and other ideas in there. So it's kind of, I don't know if easy is the right word, but it's a little bit, feels a little bit like more free. But then you kind of need to rein yourself back in a little bit as well. In terms of production, like, I think, I kind of felt like with shorts, you kind of, by the time you're all in rhythm together, it's kind of over. So like with a feature, you have 5 weeks, so kind of you kind of turn into like a bit of a well-oiled machine by the end of it. So that was good, but yeah, post is hard. I was talking about the whole thing. Sorry. I found kind of like post the biggest like change, biggest shock, because it is just way more unwieldy, and there's this like ripple effect. You change one thing here, and 40 minutes later the film's feeling completely different, and you don't know why. So that was definitely the biggest kind of jump, I felt like.
I also want to ask you that question as well. Is this your first feature? And if you've done other features, how was it like working on this compared to short films?
Yeah, I had done a feature before this, but it was like a micro budget feature. It's interesting. Like I suppose it sort of felt similar to that. I mean, it was nice to be able to pay people and to not. To actually be able to sort of do things properly, if you like. But it's the same, really. It's wrangling an awful lot of stuff and people and all of that, and being able to. I mean, what's brilliant with this is that we just had such a great team in like every department. So, from my point of view, like I had sort of co-producer Jen Monks, who I could just trust to really take care of the physical production, organisational side of things, and that meant that I could then be with Moed and really concentrate on the creative. So that was really brilliant. But yeah, it's sort of the same, because you're shooting for a similar amount of days and you have a similar amount of material, and then the edit tends to take quite a while. And then it's the same sort of working out the story in the edit.
Moin, now that you've made the film and you've had a chance to watch it, I'm sure several times, what are your honest feelings about the film? You know, and this is a very sacred space. It's safe, right? It's a safe space, right?
Make me work here, man.
Let's let him share. So yeah, what are your honest feelings? Like, I mean, because when you make a work, it exists outside you. So what is it like now seeing the film objectively, in a sense?
Yeah, well, you know, you kind of watch it. I think when you're getting towards the end of post, which is another reason why post is hard, is you're kind of making these final decisions, and you've seen it so many times. It's just blurs of noise and colour, and then there's a bit of a gap, and then you see it at a festival, and you know, all you can think about is everything that you wanted to do that you couldn't do, every mistake, every little thing. So it's impossible, and it's like, you know, it's not a nice experience. But it's been a while since we premiered, so you know, I caught a little bit of it like 2 days ago, and I was like, okay, I'm actually like I can watch it now, and I've forgotten what. You know, I've forgotten all of the little things, but it's it's like that with shorts I've made. You know, the more distance you have, the more you can kind of view it objectively, and you know, I kind of feel like I felt this when I finished it. I was like, you know, I didn't have to really compromise on anything I wanted to do. I kind of feel like I made this film to the best of my ability. I didn't have any regrets, I think. So whatever came after that, you know, whatever, I guess. But that was kind of the thing I thought, I can take that to the grave with me, I guess. I'll start with the easy question first. Yeah, we kind of did all sorts. We were like, you know, building contraptions in my back garden. Nick built like this wooden thing. We'd sit. What is it? It was like a Michelle Gondry video where he built this crazy thing where when you pressed the piano, it splattered some paint and it made the camera move, and it kind of anyway. So we were trying to replicate that. Nick built this thing with like a GoPro, so we were like filming that. Like that was the first thing we did in like prep. But I think what it actually ended up being was a combination of like ends of reels of reels of the film. So kind of bits of locations, like when the film is, I don't know a technical term, but it's kind of like cutting between things. We went out with like a Super 8 camera, and we're just like filming the world around us, bits of location and stuff. Trying to think that, yeah, we had like we kind of built a studio space in the shopping centre, in like an empty Peacocks, which was a service station, and we were like projecting that like footage that we'd shot in my back garden, and we're like filming it. So there was like loads of stuff. We probably used like 5% of it, but yeah, it was just it was like the first thing we started doing, like the last thing we finished really. But for what it means, like, you know, I guess it means there's lots of things for me, but I guess what it means for him is that it's a glimpse of something, you know, of contact that he's reaching for, of something that's bright and alive that feels different to, and he thinks that's off somewhere else, an alien planet, whatever. But I guess it's his world. You know, you kind of see that as he comes back. It's snippets of the world that he exists in but isn't really inhabiting, I guess. So yeah, that's kind of what we were thinking.
I wish we had more time, but we don't, unfortunately. But what's interesting about this film is it's actually out now. There's actually a screening at the BFI at 8:45 p.m. So you guys probably want to see it again because there's a lot in there. So when you leave here, maybe grab a drink, a coffee, something, come back and watch it at 8:45. And not just that, bring other people because it's here for 2 weeks, right? It's on at the ICA, Curzon Cinemas. There's no reason why you shouldn't, I think, watch this again because I'm going to watch it again. Tell your exes, your friends, your enemies as well, because I think everyone really needs to see this film. I've told everyone I know, and they're going to see it because I think films like this are so immensely rare, and I think it needs to be seen on the big screen, shot on 35mm. It's a really beautiful piece of work. So can we just give a massive hand to Michelle and Moin?